Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely unpack Dean Kulik's groundbreaking framework. We're looking at exactly how the universe builds reality using a really strict mathematical ledger and literally uncrossable walls. I mean, look, we've all probably wondered at some point why the laws of physics seem perfectly balanced, yet distinctly specific to our universe, right? Well, today, we're diving deep into a fascinating architectural blueprint of existence itself. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 1. The rule of change. 2. Deleting fixed points. 3. The walls make the rooms. 4. The 3 cosmic categories. 5. The unbreakable selector wall. And finally, 6. The instruction pointer. All right, Section 1, the rule of change, axiom C1. We have to start with this foundational rule because it drives the entire framework. It states, very simply, that nothing can fail to change, meaning the universe absolutely, unequivocally forbids any state where motion permanently stops. So the absolutely crucial point here is that if a mathematical location implies a complete dead stop, what we call a fixed point, it isn't just, ignored or routed around. It is actively removed from existence. It's just not allowed in the pool of reality in the first place. By this axiom, a universe simply cannot contain a point where everything freezes, because if it did, it would violate the very definition of change. Moving to Section 2, deleting fixed points, carving up the space. Let's see how this rule actually builds a physical structure. Because when you delete these fixed points, something really fascinating happens to the space that's left behind. You don't just get a universe with weird holes in it, you fundamentally alter its entire geometry. By cutting out those illegal fixed points where motion would theoretically stop, the space is no longer one giant, continuous open area. Instead, it gets carved up into completely isolated sections. You can kind of think of it like a continuous floor plan where the doors have literally been bricked over, right? Because standing in the doorway requires you to hold perfectly still. And because you cannot hold still, the doorway ceases to exist as a legal state, leaving you with entirely separate rooms. Section 3. The walls make the rooms, the origin of structure. This excision of fixed points is the exact mechanism that creates what we call walls in the state space. It is literally the origin point for structural boundaries in this whole framework. There's this fantastic quote from the source material. The wall is not a thing that happens to sit between the rooms. The wall is what makes them rooms. It's brilliant. Just like taking a zero rotation line out of a free rotor system, where an object has to spin either left or right but can never spin at exactly zero, deleting that stopping point splits the universe straight in two. It creates an uncrossable boundary that permanently separates different realities, simply because traversing between them would require passing through that forbidden dead stop. Section 4. The 3 cosmic categories, the universe's accounting ledger. Now, to understand how anything exists within these partitioned, separate spaces, we have to look at the 3-part cosmic ledger. Kulik's framework basically organizes reality into forced, selector, and selected categories. Let's break those down. First up, we have forced laws. These act like the indestructible foundation and, say, the gravity of our metaphorical house. They are the hardcore rules that must be obeyed for a universe to be legal at all. According to the models we're looking at, violating a forced law isn't just like moving to a different universe. It's an illegal motion that breaks the simulation entirely. These laws are preserved identically across all valid spaces. No exceptions. Second is the selector. Now, the selector doesn't force the fundamental rules of change. Instead, it acts as an invariant orbit label. Basically, it labels the specific, isolated room you inhabit. Think of it as a permanent characteristic of your reality, like existing in a universe that is strictly right-handed or possessing a specific mathematical constant. It dictates exactly which legal solution space is currently instantiated. And finally, the selected category. This represents your exact coordinates within that room. So this is like a person walking freely around inside a specific room without ever actually changing the room itself. The selected point is entirely free to change through continuous legal motion. It can sweep all across the available space within its allowed orbit.
Now, the really cool part is how their fates contrast under legal motion. In Kulik's executed models, the selected point flew all over the map with a huge displacement of nearly 2.0. But meanwhile, the selector label, it barely drifted by a microscopic fraction. We're talking around 10 to the power of negative 13. And the forced bracket was just preserved perfectly. So this totally proves that while your location, the selected point, changes wildly, your universe's fundamental room label, the selector, never actually moves. Which brings us to Section 5, the unbreakable selector wall, legal versus illegal motion. Because obviously we have to ask, what happens if the walker actually tries to leave their assigned room? I mean, if the selected point is moving around so freely, could it eventually just wander into a totally different reality? Well, the math definitively shows that legal motion can change your selected coordinates all day long, but it can never cross the selector wall. The framework executed thousands of random legal motions, and when a point tried to cross from one selector orbit into another, it just bounced off. It had a measured minimum approach of 1.00043 against a hard mathematical floor of 1, 0. Selectors literally permanently partition legality. You can't get out.
A great real-world example of this is biological homochirality, the fact that every alpha helix protein on Earth is right-handed. It's been this massive puzzle in biology forever. But under this framework, it exists not because right is physically better than a left or anything like that. Both a left-handed and a right-handed universe are perfectly legal forced systems. But reversing from right to left would require passing through a zero rotation state, a forbidden fixed point where motion stops. Therefore, handedness acts as a selector. Once it's chosen, you can never, ever cross the wall to the other side. Let's move to our final bit, Section 6, the instruction pointer, selecting our reality. Let's see what all this means for our specific universe, using a really fascinating constant identified in the sources, h equals pi over 9. As Dean Kulik noted, h is not the machine code. It is closer to the instruction pointer. See, the selector doesn't write the universal laws. The forced category handles that. Instead, the selector acts as the pointer that converts that theoretical, forced solution space into one particular localized realization. It is literally the exact address in the universal memory that our specific reality is reading from right now. And the data brilliantly illustrates just how insanely narrow our specific room actually is. The framework tested various map families to see where this exact constant, h equals pi over 9, could survive as a dynamically stable, phase-locked orbit. It survived in only 2.86% of polynomial circle maps, just under 2% of Mobius maps, and a tiny, tiny 0.25% in quadratic iterations. It shows that our selector is a highly specific, super rare address amidst a vast landscape of other possibilities. Ultimately, it all comes back to the number 3. This trichotomy of forced, selector, and selected provides 3 executable mathematical tests that totally upgrade our understanding of the universe. We're moving from just a philosophical taxonomy to a precise, measurable instrument. Think about it. If violating a rule breaks legality, it's forced. If a trait is invariant under all motion while other values could legally exist, it's a selector. And if legal motion changes it freely, it's selected. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you to ponder the grand cosmic floor plan. The force laws built the house. Axiom C1 deleted the fixed points, literally raising the walls. And our selector placed us into one highly specific, inescapable room. So if we are safely locked inside our one specific legal room, tracing our complex paths across the floor, what wonders do you think are playing out in all the others? Keep questioning. Keep learning. And thank you so much for joining me to explore the true architecture of reality.